Okay, hello everyone. We are here with Juergen today in this session. I hope you guys are full now and you can get comfortable for the upcoming sessions as well, starting with building cloud native applications with .NET Aspire. And without further ado, we are with you, Juergen.
Thank you. Good afternoon, all. Hope you had a good break. Yeah, after the break, we're now starting with .NET Aspire. And the way Microsoft wants you to build cloud native applications. So let's quickly start with the introduction. So this is me. Hopefully the screen's changed. No, it's not. PowerPoint don't want to. Here it is. Okay, so yeah, it took some time for the next slide. Maybe it's because of me. So that's me. I'm a software engineer and AppSec responsible, so application security responsible, and a QA responsible person in the company. Yeah, net addicted. I'm working with .NET for 22 years, 23 years almost. And I'm a Microsoft MVP for 9 years now. And besides that, I'm blogging a little bit or writing articles, stuff like this. Also wrote a book. If you like to dig a little bit deeper in customizing ASP.NET Core, this is the book that shows you how to adjust ASP.NET Core the way you need it. Okay, that's pretty much it from the introduction. So a little bit of agenda. I don't have that much slides, only 3 more, I think. I want to tell you a little bit about .NET Aspire, what it is and what it is made for. And also, I would like to clarify what is cloud native, so in the sense of .NET Aspire. So there are various definitions of cloud native. And the rest of the session is only code and demos and a little bit of terminal sessions and so on. So let's take a look at .NET Aspire. So the first thing that might make you smile a little bit is the first version will be released as version 8 soon. So it will be released soon. This is important to know, and it will be version 8 instead of version 1. Maybe Microsoft knows that version 1 nobody will use, so that's 8. No, the reason is that the version will match the .NET version numbers. That's the reason. And I think you're sure if it's version 8. So soon means in the next weeks or within the next month. Then .NET Aspire is not a thing like a framework or a stack or something. It's a workload. So it's an add-on to .NET SDK, or an add-on to Visual Studio. So you can call it like a tool set or something. It's made to develop cloud native applications locally. So it's only for local use. It's not made for production. It's only for local development. This is pretty important to know. So it helps you locally to build cloud native applications. So, and it's made to make your cloud native application deployment ready. So the sentence written by me is a little bit wrong. It's not made to deploy cloud native applications. It's made to make it deploy ready. And for sure, because it's made by Microsoft, it makes, or the tool set around Aspire makes it possible to deploy it on Microsoft Azure only. So there are ways to deploy to Amazon. There's also a tool set to deploy to Kubernetes. but it's not made for Kubernetes. It's only for Azure App Services. No, that's wrong, for Azure Container Services, container apps. Okay. That's not that much detail at this slide, but I will show you later what it can do, or what you can do with it. So let's clarify a little bit what cloud native means. There are, as said, various definitions, and if you're talking about cloud native, most people think about Docker, Kubernetes, stuff like this. And in that case, I think it makes more sense to say that cloud native means applications that are designed to run in the cloud and make use of cloud services. That makes more sense because if you deploy an Aspire app, it won't deploy to Kubernetes. It makes use of Docker. And it's for sure all about cloud deployment. It's because it's cloud native. But it's also not about microservices. So if you're talking to other people and talk about cloud native, most people are thinking it's about microservices. But in that case, it's not. You can create a kind of a monolith that makes use of cloud services and is designed to run in the cloud. So from my perspective, this is also a cloud native application. But yes, you can also use Aspire for microservices. This will work as well. So the next slide is only about what I want to show. And if I start with the demos, I will have the chat open so you can ask me questions in the chat. And after the session, I will be available in the Q&A area. So if you'd like to contact me afterwards, I will stay online for, let's say, 30 minutes to answer questions if you like. There's already a question in the chat. There's a question that asks, for production, all the metrics and monitoring should be done by any other service instead of Aspire. That is not completely right. So the metrics and monitoring will be done in a different way, but it's already configured. So you locally configure metrics and monitoring, how you would like to have it. And if you deploy the app, it's automatically configured to have metrics and monitoring on Azure. Hope that answers your question. We will see you later. Okay, in this demos, I will show you how, or tell you quickly how to install .NET Aspire. I will also go quickly into workloads and templates, and also I try to add .NET Aspire to an existing application. I said try because it's currently not working on my machine. And also show you .NET Aspire components, things that you can use in Aspire, what you can do with it, and how to deploy to Azure. So no, that's the wrong slide. So let's quickly go to the Visual Studio installer to show you how to install Aspire. So on my machine, it's already installed. I broke something. I will tell you later, but it's installed. So I'm starting the installer, and here go to modify to install it. And there should be a checkbox for .NET Aspire. So it thinks about getting things ready. Okay, ASP.NET is already enabled. And if you open ASP.NET and web development, you see this little thing here. Hope you can see it. .NET Aspire SDK in preview. Currently it's in preview. Just enable it and you get .NET Aspire installed. So this is one way to do it. The other way is using workloads with the .NET CLI. .NET workload list shows you all the installed workloads. And I just see that I'm in the wrong folder. The workloads are .NET version dependent. So I need to go there. And run it again. And you see that I have now the version 8 workloads. As you can see, we have WASI and WASM WebAssembly stuff, played around with it. And we have Aspire here. And it also lists the Visual Studio workload, some more WASM stuff. So if you like to install it, you can just write .NET workload install Aspire, and it will install Aspire for the current SDK version. And the current SDK version is version 8. So I set a global JSON in that folder here, in that ABP folder, because Aspire is currently working with .NET 8 only. It is kind of working with .NET 9, but not completely. So if you type this in with the .NET SDK, you get the Aspire workload. And with the Aspire workload, you get a list of Aspire templates. We have an Aspire app host, the Aspire application. This is just an empty one. Aspire service defaults, we will see it later. Same with the app host. We have a starter application template and an XUnit test project. So you can XUnit or unit test your Aspire applications using XUnit, using this template. I won't show this today, so that took too much time. Okay, so this is about workloads, and as said, workloads are dependent on the SDK, and this confuses my Aspire installation for Visual Studio somehow. Let's see it. So I have a backend API project, I have a front-end Blazor web project, and I would like to make this ready for Aspire. So usually you can do something like this if it's installed. Just go to add, hope you can see it, and say add .NET Aspire orchestration support. And if I click on that, I get an error message. So this is because I broke something. I'm not sure what. There's a ticket on GitHub for this, but without any solution yet. So if you install it on your machine, it should work. So this is why we won't go through Visual Studio now to make the demos. Same here. So the Aspire templates are not in the location where Visual Studio expected it. So same here. So this is why I close this and rename the folder and create the Aspire starter here using the CLI. I said .NET new Aspire starter, and I name it weather app, and put it in the same location with the same name, weather apps. So it now creates the starter template or the starter project. And if this is done, I open Visual Studio again. My installation only has problems with the templates. With the templates to create the Aspire project. Okay, it needs to restore something. It's almost there. Just 1 more second. Some more restores. And here it is. Whoops, the focus of my cursor was gone. So go into this. And now I open this in Visual Studio. So it needs a second to open. It's always a lottery. If you have 3 screens and open something in Visual Studio, it's a lottery to know on which screen it actually opens. So. Okay, here it is. Still loading. So we have our API service here. As before, we have our front end. This as well is a Blazor web. So we have our components, our pages here. And the API service contains a minimal API that just returns a list of weather forecast objects. So this is the usual minimal API template project. Nothing special here. And if we go here, here we have something special. So I will go into it in a second. So let's have a look into the other projects. So we have, in addition to the backend and to the front end, we have an app host, which is the default project to run. And we have the service defaults. Service defaults is just a project that contains a C# file with some extensions on host application builder to add service defaults like telemetry, health checks, service discovery. This one is used to discover all the services that are composed. We'll see later. HTTP client defaults and so on. We have configuration for open telemetry. We have configuration for the default health check. And we have default endpoints that only register the health checks. So you can manipulate as you like, as you need. If you like more default endpoints, just add it. If you like more configuration, just add it or remove the things that you don't need. And this extension are added here. So we have here the add service default. So this is using the extension project. Same with that one, map default endpoints. And we have the same thing added to the API service. Go here, we have the service defaults here and the default endpoints. So all the projects that gets Aspire support will have this endpoints and service default registered. So usually when you go to in Visual Studio and say add as part of orchestration support, it does all the stuff for you. It adds the projects, the two projects, the app host and the extensions. And it also adds these lines to your project. So every time you right click here, say add Aspire orchestration support, it will add these lines. And if those projects are not existing in your solution, then it will create it. So this makes your applications or your services ready for Aspire or for orchestration, Aspire orchestration. So let's have a look into the app host. This is where the magic happens. So it looks like a standard program CS. We have a thing called Builder, which is a distributed application builder. In that case, and with this builder, you can add services. In this case, we add a API service here. So this is a reference to the API service project. So this is a generated code file. If we go into here, it reads the dependencies here. So we have project dependencies, which are not really project dependencies, just look like this. And with this project dependencies, these files get generated. So we have this weather app API services file that only contains the path, the project path. And we have the same thing for the front end. So this is C# code generation that creates this file. So we'll increase the font size a little bit. So on the builder, we add a project. We put this reference in and we name it API service. So we store this one in a variable to use it later. So in the second step, we add another project, which is the front end. Call it web front end. And we configure it, for example, with external HTTP endpoints. So this service should be accessible from outside. You need to imagine that both services will run in a Docker container somewhere on Azure. And these projects need to be accessible from outside. So it will configure an ingress configuration on Azure to make the endpoint available. And here it adds a reference to the API service. So this is the actual composing. It adds a reference, and with this reference, the front end knows the back end. So you need to imagine that this will run in separate containers, and you need to configure it in a way that they know each other, or at least the front end knows the back end. So this is, as said, this is the composing stuff. There's a lot more you can do. You can say, you can configure a special endpoint. You can add arguments to the startup if you like. You can, for example, hope you can see it, configure URLs if you like. You can set an environment, development, production, staging, whatever you want, and so on. There's a lot to do. You can also say, I want to run 2 instances. So with this configuration, we will have 2 instances of the front end. So let's have a look what the builder can do for you. So we have a lot of stuff we can add. We can add a connection string to a database, for example. We can add another service, which is an external container. We can add a reference to an executable, to .exe or command file or whatever. We can add some more projects and other resources and so on. This is pretty much it in the default configuration. So we can add a lot more, and we will do it later. So let's quickly go back to the front end and look into the programs. Yes, and we can see that we have output cache configured here, and we have an HTTP client. This is the HTTP client that goes to the backend and fetches the weather forecast data. And we have a special base address configured. So it's an URI, it's a valid URI. We go to HTTPS or HTTP and go to API service. That's pretty much it. With this name, the front end is able to connect to the backend. Let's have a look if it's working. No, there is the just pressing. There's the screen share thing. No, I see the run button. The screen share thing was over the run button. Okay, it is starting. It should open in the browser. That is open in the background. Fully. It's compiling, starting debugging. If you like, it's time for a question while we're waiting.
Yes, we have 2 questions.
Awesome.
Oh, it just hopped on the 3. So Marco says, I perhaps misunderstood. Aspire is not suitable to arrange a deployment to Azure Kubernetes services.
Exactly. It's not there to deploy to Kubernetes. There's another tool to deploy to Kubernetes, which is called Aspirate. It's a community tool, and this is what you need to use if you like to deploy to Kubernetes.
Do you want me to move on to the next question?
Yeah, yes, please.
All right. Can it deploy to Amazon Web Services?
I haven't done it yet. There was a session recorded with David Fowler recently, I think last week, where he is discussing about deploying to Amazon services. I didn't watch this session, unfortunately.
Right, if people are wondering about it, then they can check out David Fowler's session.
Go to David Fowler's timeline on Twitter, and you will see the link to the YouTube video.
Yes, thank you so much. And lastly, how can we publish Aspire, or is it just local based?
Aspire can't be published. Aspire is just to help you to develop your distributed or cloud native application locally. I will show you how the deployment works.
Okay, thank you so much. That was all of the questions. If you have any more questions, you can drop your questions in the Q&A section. And I will leave it to you now, Juergen.
Thank you. So the app is starting, and we get a URL. And as you can see, there was a login parameter, and maybe you saw it. So the dashboard we will see in a second is secured. And if you start debugging in Visual Studio, there will be a login token passed. So this is the famous Aspire dashboard, where you can see the services you're running. We have the API service, and we have 2 web front-end services, because we said that we want to have 2 instances with with replicas, and the number of the replicas is 2. So we see 2 front ends running. You see the endpoints. I just see that the UI is in German. Yeah, we see 2 endpoints, the SSL or HTTPS and HTTP endpoint. Those endpoints are the same for both replicas. And there is something like a load balancer thing in the front that points us to the right instance. So you see the status of your services, they're all running. You see the names, the times where it started, and the project, if there's a project involved. So what we also can see, if we go to details, and this might be important later during development, you see all the variables, environment variables, and settings that get passed into the services. So we have names, times, path, so meta information. We have all the endpoints. So we have the public endpoint here, and we have the internal endpoints with a different number here. So this is HTTPS target, and so the background endpoint. So we also have the environment variables, and we can show them by clicking on the eye icon. There's a lot of stuff that get passed into the application. OTEL, OTLP endpoints, and so on for the metric stuff, and so on. Also, I think these are the public, no, the internal endpoints. Yeah, these are the internal ones. Yeah, different than that one. This is what you can see here. Maybe you need this later. And you can see the protocols, the log output. That's what you usually see in the terminal, like this one. So you can change your service here. You can, whoop, I stopped that. Yeah, it seemed just, yeah, I closed the window. My fault, sorry. Starting again. And it was my fault to close the terminal. I hope it's faster this time. So if not, I go on with some more configuration you can do, some more services you can add. So we're still thinking. Unable to start. Good. Okay, let's go on with some more configuration. Let's say we would like to have a cache, a Redis cache. Then we would need to add a cache in the app host first. So because we go here to the builder, we are not able to add a cache yet. So this is where Aspire components came on stage. So let's go here and say add .NET Aspire package. Yeah, there was a note in the chat, the Aspire tool, not easy to find. Thanks for sharing the link. So what do we need to add here? On the host, you need to add Aspire host Redis. So I want to use a Redis cache. I install it. It's just a NuGet package here. That's the NuGet package explorer. And I need to apply. I need to accept. Okay, this is done. And I need to do the same in the front end. So I want to add the cache to the front end. It's add aspire package. And this time the tag shows component, not host, it's just component. And we need Aspire Stack Exchange Redis output caching. Those packages here are for the clients. And if you add packages on the app host, you see the hosting packages. So I install it here. So I need to apply. And I read all the licenses and I accept. Hope you do as well, reading all the licenses as usual. So this is done. Okay. And now I can create a variable for cache builder add Redis, give them a name. Let's just call it cache. So to make it simple, so we have the cache here, and we need to add a reference to the cache. We can add as much reference as we like. Reference. I should write it right. So just add the cache here. So this time, this is working using a Docker container. So it's pulling a Docker container and run it on Docker desktop. So if you use components like this, you need to start Docker desktop. Or just have it running. I don't, I need to start it. It is starting. Hopefully. And as soon as Docker desktop is started, we can run this. Oh, it is still thinking about to start. Okay, I think we are running slowly out of time. And I want to show you the deployment. So Docker desktop needs some more time to start. And if it's done, I can start the entire solution, and we will see a fourth service running in the dashboard, which is the cache.
We still have 7 minutes to go, and I can redirect the question to you.
Yeah, please.
That's loading. Okay, Tina Muda asked, any additional config required to run ABP projects? Do we have
what project?
For that?
What
ABP
kind of
projects. I believe he's referring to ABP framework.
I haven't tried it with ABP framework. It should work. It should work. Soon there are web projects or executables or running in Docker. It should work. But never tried it.
Okay, I'll leave it to you then.
Okay, thank you. So Docker needs some more time. Because of this, I just try to show you the deployment. So let's clear it here. And for the deployment to Azure, you need to have AZD installed. AZD is a command line tool to make it easier to deploy stuff to Azure or to configure stuff. I don't like the Azure CLI or Azure PowerShell tooling. It's pretty complex, and I like using Azure Portal more. Anyway, so this is because I'm a developer. But anyway, the AZD is the Azure Development SDK, and this is much easier to use. You can install it by calling winget install Microsoft AZD. Maybe there's an installer to download somewhere. I already did that. So winget install Microsoft.azd. And as soon as it's installed, you can just cd into your solution and type azd in it. And it starts to analyze your solution. You can use the code in the current directory or select a template. I use the current code. It's scanning the code and it's creating manifest files to deploy to Azure. So in the meantime, Docker Desktop is starting. Oh, I don't want to start. Anyway, you need to believe me that you will see a fourth service. Docker Desktop tells me you need to finish setting up Docker Desktop. I'll do it later, not now. Okay, it's still scanning. It takes a minute or two. And after that, the project is ready to deploy.
All right. In the meantime, we have another question.
Great.
David Ayala is asking, can you control the version of the components, for example, MySQL with 8.0.23, just as a sample?
You can control it in the same way as you control NuGet packages, I think. Just adding the version number or manipulating or changing. I hope this answers the question.
Hopefully. Thank you, David. Please let us know if you need clarification on that part. And on to you.
Thank you. So it's still scanning. Yeah, usually it's faster. That's maybe currently while presenting. It's a little bit slower. Another question.
All right. Yeah, we don't have any more questions, but if you guys have any more questions, please make sure to drop them in the Q&A section. Even though the session will finish, Juergen said he will be here for a couple of minutes to answer your questions. So please make sure to drop them.
Yes. So before it, before the session ends, we think we have 2 more minutes. I will stop this and just show you what to do. So without any demonstration. So you saw AZD init to set up all the stuff. And you can say AZD up, just this one, to just deploy to Azure. And it does all the stuff for you. So as soon as it's initialized, you can just type AZD up and it deploys to Azure. You may select a subscription. You may need to log in first, but it's like it's a very good CLI wizard that guides you through. And if you like to remove all the Azure resources later on, because you're playing, it's not AZD up, it's AZD down. Yes, down. And it uninstalls all the resources. So let's go quickly to portal.azure.com, because I already did that in the past, just to show you how it's installed. And we will see resources here. Boo, 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 boo. It's on this subscription. And we have all resource groups here. I think. No, I deleted it. I deleted it. So sorry, I can't show it. Unfortunately.
It's all right. I believe we can drop a link to it once it's ready for everyone to see it, and then we can pin it so everyone can see it afterwards.
Yeah.
All right.
We'll do it. Okay, so we'll stay a little bit in the chat and in the Q&A to answer your questions if you like.
Yes. Well, do you want to add anything, Juergen?
No, that's pretty much it. Unfortunately, I couldn't show the Docker desktop thing and the cache.
It's quite all right, no worries.
Yeah, that's all I want to say. Also, unfortunate that the AZD init didn't work in time. But maybe you can imagine. Yeah.
Yes, maybe later we are doing community talks on a monthly basis, so we can
cool.
Take it from where we left it on a community talk, which is completely free and published on YouTube.
Awesome.
All right. Well, I'll be in contact with you then. Thank you so much for today's session.
Thank you. Thanks to the audience.
Thank you, everyone. We'll see you on the next one. Have a great rest of the conference. Bye.
Bye.